Hi guys, this is a compilation of all the bosses I've ranked in Act 1. However, even if you've seen them, please stick around as I'll also be ranking some extra bosses. Please consider subscribing and enjoy. Ranking every boss in Silksong. Moss Mother. Now this is a perfect boss for a beginner. It's got the jab and abs. Its similarity to Vengefly King from Hollow Knight also boosts this. The theming for this boss also combos nicely in the area that's in, that being Moss Grotto. Overall, a pretty good boss. Solid B tier. Bell Beast. Let me just say, this boss is adorable. The second you start this boss, this is going to be your companion. Similar to the stag from Hollow Knight. I personally really enjoyed this boss. However, if we're being realistic, it's not as good as I'm saying. Now this may just be me, but I did have some struggles with this boss. The double damage from hitting even a single bell is brutal, especially this early in the game. A really fun and enjoyable boss. A tier. The Skargd. I definitely butchered that. Now I wouldn't really call this a boss, I would say it's more of a mini-boss, and even then, it's pretty forgettable. I had to look up the name on Google, that's how much I forgot it. I also think it's way too difficult for that early in the game. Like, I get Silksong is meant to have difficulty spikes, but that one's just annoying. I don't know, I feel like there's not much to say about this. I'm gonna give him a C. Lace. Now Lace is a really good early game boss, and her lore is great. Also, bit of a spoiler here, but she's the person that frees you from the cage at the beginning of the game. Fighting her is really fun, as it matches Hornet's fast-paced game, unlike Hollow Knight, which is slower. I love this boss. Easy S tier. Fourth Chorus. Now when you first encounter this boss, it seems a bit sudden. Well, at least for me it was. But the fight's pretty easy once you know what you're doing. And the ending, well, the ending you kinda just have to experience for yourself. I know I haven't said much about this boss, but it's better if you experience it, as I've said before. Overall, solid S tier. Savage Beastfly. Now I know you're probably eager to hear what I have to say about this boss fight, considering its reputation. But I'm gonna be real, it's not that hard guys, you just have a skill issue. Now before you start hating at me, to be fair I did go in a little bit later than I was probably meant to. I think I had gotten Threadstorm and probably another mask. But I understand that going in early can make it really difficult. However, don't get me started on the second time you fight this boss. Not the fight in the Hunter's March, the one in Farfield, because that one holds no mercy. Now I've basically gotten the true ending for this game, and I still haven't beaten it. The first phase is fine, but the second it starts spawning minions, that's when I get cooked. Also, half the time the platforms just aren't there, so you can't even stand on anything. But if I'm ranking this boss fight on the first location, I'll probably give it an A tier because of its good design, and the rewards you get after it. The Krogler. Now a bit like the Skargd, this isn't exactly a boss, but at least it's more of a boss than the Skargd. But that's also a bit of a stretch, as he only has one attack. And you don't even get a reward, it's basically killing it and it never comes back. But there is a little Easter egg if you do decide to kill it. By returning to the location near the Wormways, you will see mini versions of the boss. But anyhow, not much to say about this one. C+. Mawing. Now this boss is a perfect blend of challenge and good design. It telegraphs its attacks quite nicely, so you always know what's going to happen. Not to mention, the music is fire. If you're struggling with this boss, there's also a method to make it easier. By searching the first tower in Greymoor, you can find an NPC called Garamond and Zaza. Then, if you die enough, they will ask you if you need help. I unknowingly did this. However, it still didn't turn into baby mode. Also, if you skip this boss by either going to Sherwood early, or using the Flea Caravan, in Act 3, Mawing will actually turn into a voided version with more health, which is a really cool addition for those who have skipped it. Now because of his lore and game design, I'll give him a solid A, maybe an A+. Sister Splinter. Now, as you may have guessed, Sister Splinter is the boss for Sherwood, and the design is honestly really cool. However, that can't make up for the fact that she's extremely easy, especially for the reward you get for beating her, which is the wall jump if you didn't know. However, our lore is really good, even if it's only accessible in Act 3. It's basically, long ago, Sherwood was ruled by a creature called Nylath, and everything was good. But then the Sister Splinter came along with her tribe and took over, poisoning the foliage. That's why Sherwood is so hostile. But even if you kill Sister Splinter and return to her location, you will see a new sprout growing, owing the cycle of rebirth. But even if she's really easy, I'm gonna give her a B+. Widow. Now, I personally think this boss is really hard. The double damage is no joke, but its attacks are signaled quite nicely, with the styling. In fact, the whole vibe is just really cool. I especially love the part where Widow fakes her death and the music gets really intense. For me, my adrenaline kicked in so hard. But I also think they made that part way too difficult, considering you have 5 health, essentially having 3 health, because everything does double damage in Silksong. It's a pretty important fight, I guess, as it unlocks the Muslin, which is pretty important, even if you don't realize it. And the issue's pretty fun too, so, I don't know, a B, maybe A-. I'm thinking somewhere around there. The Great Conch Flies. Now, I personally think this is one of the more interesting bosses on this list. Their attacks consist of moving through the walls and ground, and it's signaled pretty well. Not to mention, there's also a sequel if you kill one of them. I also quite like their location, and styling for that matter. Overall, gonna go with a B-. The Last Judge. Now, this is basically the final boss of Act 1, unless you go through a different route, but we don't talk about that. And I truly think it fulfills that purpose really well. Its styling's pretty good, and the way it changes from Phase 1 to Phase 2 is phenomenal. However, change from Phase 2 to Phase 3 is barely noticed. Also, Phase 2 is just much harder than Phase 1, as every attack now has fire involved with it. That means you're gonna die a lot more, and then you have to do the whole run back, which isn't the best. There's definitely worse, but it's pretty high up there. You'll likely get hit on the way up, which means the fight is gonna be even harder. Bit of a side note here, but can we talk about the fact that they kill the 2 pilgrims? Right, what do they do? Now, this boss was, in my opinion, a good challenge, and for that reason, I think I'm gonna have to give it an S, just because of how iconic it is. And so, that was every boss in Act 1 ranked. Thank you so much for making it to the end. Hope you enjoyed, and stay tuned for more.